shovel and me bread and cheese, a little white can for me tea. When I'm too old for a fireman's work, it's a driver I shall be. And when the fire lights up all the footlights and the night is sharp and clear, if a man doesn't close all the loco sheds, they'll be here in 40 years. With me long narrow shovel, me bread and cheese, a little white can for me tea. When I'm too old for a fireman's work, it's a driver I shall be. Oh, did you hear the story of the company's pursuit of glory? They raced from London town to Aberdeen. Indeed, when I'm too old for a fireman's work, it's a driver on the days of steam. Indeed, to win it, they pushed their engines to the limit. These were the olden days, the golden days of steam. In old Euston Station they revelled in the situation. They had to beat their time from Crewe to Carlisle. They would pursue it, they had the drivers who could do it. The western route would be the finest in the Isles. They would pursue it, they had the drivers who could do it. The western route would be the finest in the Isles. They took her to the limit and averaged a mile a minute on the journey from Carlisle to Perth. The drum and steam in the fireman working like a demon, or for to pass the signals at Kinnaird Harbour first. The drum and steam in the fireman working like a demon, or for to pass the signals at Kinnaird Harbour first. The eastern men did battle by breaking records to Newcastle, the poor passengers more dead than alive. Each driver's order was beat the other to the border. It was the summertime of 1895. Each driver's order was beat the other to the border. It was the summertime of 1895. Passed through Portobello, the timekeepers were turning yellow. The engine took the Benz at 83, and at the station they sat and fretted with frustration till they were all the bridge and making for Dundee. And at the station they sat and fretted with frustration till they were all the bridge and making for Dundee. With those signals clear past Kinnaird, but with time to spare, into Aberdeen triumphant and sore. Hell and damnation, the western train was in the station. She'd been there a quarter hour or more. Hell and damnation, the western train was in the station. She'd been there a quarter hour or more. Well, did you hear the story of the company's pursuit of glory? They raced from London town to Aberdeen. Indeed, to win it, they pushed their engines to the limit. These were the olden days, the golden days of steam. Now Ernie was a railwayman and he rattled his way across the land, and he told me, yes, he told me every day I ought to be doing the same. He rode a bike and carried a can and he called himself a lucky man. He never let the thought of changing times to cloud or trouble his brain. And what did he do when they told him he was through? His railway was way behind the times. What could he do? It was the only life he knew. He called himself the dinosaur the railway left behind. Every engine up the shed, he worked them all alive and dead, and he knew them, yes, he knew them, everyone had got a good tale to tell. This one was a sod for coal, and that one fell in the table hole, and that one hit the chip shop down the road and battered it all to hell. And oh, what did he do when they told him he was through? His railway was way behind the times. What could he do? It was the only life he knew. He called himself the dinosaur the railway left behind. Stopped for steam near Nottingham and he dropped a plug in Birmingham. One day his engine left the track and took a shortcut through the yard. He ran away a score of times and once he left his train behind, for he snatched the coupling, hit the brake and make a plaything of the guard. what did he do when they told him he was through? His railway was way behind the times. What could he do? It was the only life he knew. He called himself the dinosaur the railway left behind. His mates, they were a special breed, but most of them had gone to seed, for they couldn't find a part for them to play inside the master plan. Some went into industry and some just whiled the time away, but he discovered steam in quiet country corners of the land. And what did he do when they told him he was through? His railway was way behind the times. What could he do? It was the only life he knew. He called himself the dinosaur the railway left behind. Yes, the dinosaurs are gathering in Haverthwaite and Pickering. By watercress and lavender and bluebell we can ride the line. Now Ernie is a railwayman and he's glad to use his skills again, content to be among the dinosaurs the railway left behind. Oh, what did he do when they told him he was through? His railway was way behind the times. What could he do? It was the only life he knew. He called himself the dinosaur the railway left behind. As a cleaner back in 1939, I planned to spend me life just working up and down the line, devoted to the company till the driver's seat was mine. I never thought that it would be me downfall. I was working on the night shift with nothing much to do, so I sloped off out of the foreman's sight, well really wouldn't you? And I came across a number 4 just waiting for the crew, and I clambered on the footplate like a driver. I'm the man that put the engine in the chip shop. Wherever I go me legend follows me, and as I watch the trains go by and lean upon me brush, I know I've made me mark on history. Well, she hadn't got much steam up, so I filled her up with coal, released the brake and opened up the rag to make her roll. But she wouldn't budge an inch, and when I heard the foreman call, I left her where she was and ran for cover. Well, the sun was just appearing when the foreman went his rounds. He was back inside a minute with a troubled sort of frown. He said, I've lost a number 4, have you seen one around? And I nearly filled me trousers when he asked me, 'cause I'm the man that put the engine in the chip shop. Wherever I go me legend follows me, and as I watch the trains go by and lean upon me brush, I know I've made me mark on history. Well, me stoking was impeccable, the steam had risen fast. With the regulator open she began to move at last, and a guard fell off his bicycle when he saw her rolling past, for he couldn't see a fireman or a driver. She took off down the main line going faster by the yard, but the signalman responded to a phone call from the guard, put the signals all at danger, then he cursed himself so hard. There was no one on the footplate who could see them. Well, I'm the man that put the engine in the chip shop. Wherever I go me legend follows me, and as I watch the trains go by and lean upon me brush, I know I've made me mark on history. She continued on her journey through the morning countryside, collecting sets of crossing gates, she carried them with pride, till at last they set the points to get the runaway inside, and she headed for the buffers at the station. Well, the buffers never stood a chance, she wore them like a crown. A wooden fence, a footbridge and a telegraph pole went down. Then she took to the highway and went on towards the town, but she couldn't bring herself to pass the chip shop. I'm the man that put the engine in the chip shop. Wherever I go me legend follows me, and as I watch the trains go by and lean upon me brush, I know I've played my part in history. Well, she entered by the side door, and there she came to rest, they made us safe, and then went off to find the guilty pest. And it wasn't long before they tracked me down, and I confessed to being the man that put the engine in the chip shop. I'm the man that put the engine in the chip shop. Wherever I go, my legend follows me. And as I watch the trains go by and lean upon me brush, I know I've made me mark in history.
The Fireman's Lament. It was collected from driver Harry Noon. Chap was a fired for at one time, retired now. It was a song, I should say, that came about 1910. It was definitely before 1919, because the 1919 strike put an end to the 12-hour day. It was Northwestern, London and Northwestern, because they had a rack system whereby a man waited at home until his name got to the bottom of a rack and he was called out to work. If he wasn't there when the knocker up went to inform him, he lost a day's pay. It's not all beer and skittles, this bloomin' job of mine, for it's not a bed of roses, a firing on the line. They don't give you much money, but lots of slack instead, and they teach you how to work at night to earn your daily bread. Just fancy being knocked up in the middle of the night, with the noise enough to wake the dead and give the neighbours fright. You leave your bed with sad regrets, prepared to work a train. Then they tell you that the job is caped and it's back to bed again. When you get down to the shed, that's when the fun begins. You find that someone's pinched your lamps and tools and other things. Of course it's all against the rules, but still you do the same. Go and pinch someone else's, or it's you will get the blame. You often get an engine that is very shy for steam. It's then you start to realise it isn't all a dream. Your mate sits in the corner doing nothing else but moan, till you wish to Christ he'd shut up or get off or stay at home. And when the peg's a danger, just as sure as you're alive, there is a rule made by some fool, they call it 55. You have to tramp perhaps half a mile through hail or snow or rain to sign the book, then sling your hook and tramp it back again. And when the journey's ended and the foreman says sign off, miles from home you landed without money, backer or scoff. Lodge over at the barracks built inside the station yard, where the engines sing your lullabies and the beds are bleeding hard. Or perhaps it's private diggings, that's another lively hole. It's 10 to 1, the fire's gone out to find the bloody coal. You go to bed half famished and pretend it's for the best. It's said when your belly's empty, then your brains will get a rest. It's really aggravating and it chills you to the bone when they call you up and tell you you've to work the diner home. On the homeward trip the shovel seems to weigh at least a ton, but you've still got a couple of tons to shift before you've done. For the umpteenth time you swear you'll chuck the job and do no more. Reach home then book on in 9 hours and the game starts as before. I very often wonder if I'll get a driver's job, for I'm sick and tired of firing 60 hours for 30 bob. Drivers don't retire on the footplate, they take root. As a fireman I must wait until I fill up dead men's boots. I'll be swinging shovels till I die and then to heaven go. Or perhaps I'll still be firing for the old lad down below. Whenever you see a train go by or hear an engine whistle cry, think of the man on the old footplate shoveling coal, the driver's mate. A loco fireman is me grade, boiling water is me trade. The driver thinks he runs a show, but if I'm not there the train won't go. Feeding coal to a hungry fire, sweating cobs to get steam higher. What the collier harvest that to burn, with sweat and toil and me wages earn. A loco fireman is me grade, boiling water is me trade. The driver thinks he runs a show, but if I'm not there the train won't go. Me driver sits there like a god, he's a decent mate but an idle sod. Though I be shoveling on me knees, still he'd sit there at his ease. A loco fireman is me grade, boiling water is me trade. The driver thinks he runs a show, but if I'm not there the train won't go. A pick and a shovel are the tools of me trade, and two strong arms to swing the blade. Hands with palms as hard as leather, and nimble feet as light as a feather. A loco fireman is me grade, boiling water is me trade. The driver thinks he runs a show, but if I'm not there the train won't go. One day a driver I will be, and the pick and shovel I'll be free. Until that day I'll shift the coal, raising steam so the train can roll. A loco fireman is me grade, boiling water is me trade. The driver thinks he runs a show, but if I'm not there the train won't go.
Well, it won't be long before the steam's all gone green all the way. The number 9s will soon be moving on green. And I say we're only working for today, the end's not very far away. For many a long year, well, we showed them how green all the way. But the diesel pulls the wagons now green. And they say to me as down the line they roll, we don't need you to shovel coal. Oh, when the rail car speed on the Lincoln run green all the way, the tank is rest in the evening sun green. And the grey of smoke is drifting on the air, but they're not going anywhere. So to the heat and the dust I'll bid farewell, green all the way. For a death trap cab and the diesel smell, green. And the way things are a smash there's bound to be, they won't find very much of me. So when the Deltics roar up the northern line, green all the way, just spare a thought for the good old time, green. And the days of fire and steam are nearly done, they won't be rising with the sun. We stood at Pinxton Station one dismal Saturday, an air of gloom hung over platform one. For folk all dressed in mourning black had come from near and far to see the Pinxton Flyers' final run. There's a scrapyard and the colliery and pubs of great renown, and the smell of burning slag, it fills the air. But you'll never get to see them on the rusty Pinxton line, for the LMR don't have the trains to spare. They filled the booking office, the most it's seen for years, buying souvenir tickets by the score. Enthusiastic passengers took pictures of the guard, whose autograph was sought by many more. There's a scrapyard and the colliery and pubs of great renown, and the smell of burning slag, it fills the air. But you'll never get to see them on the rusty Pinxton line, for the LMR don't have the trains to spare. Oh, a solemn ritual was held upon the platform side, though now it had long past departure time. But finally the train pulled out with whistle open wide, and detonators banging on the line. There's a scrapyard and the colliery and pubs of great renown, and the smell of burning slag, it fills the air. But you'll never get to see them on the rusty Pinxton line, for the LMR don't have the trains to spare. And every single station from there to Nottingham was treated to a ceremony grand. The communication cord was pulled a dozen times or more for the gentleman to shake the porter's hand. There's the scrapyard and the colliery and pubs of great renown, and the smell of burning slag, it fills the air. But you'll never get to see them on the rusty Pinxton line, for the LMR don't have the trains to spare. Terminus was reached and everyone got out, the refreshment bar their final port of call. And the gentlemen in black top hats, they drank a solemn toast, for the poor old Pinxton Railway was no more. There's the scrapyard and the colliery and pubs of great renown, and the smell of burning slag, it fills the air. But you'll never get to see them on the rusty Pinxton line, for the LMR don't have the trains to spare.
Wheels to roll her along, just a working girl on the Lickey. Bertha's the name in the Hall of Fame, she was the only one of her kind, the first and last of her line. She was foul as dream and was first in steam as 1920 dawned. She served her time on the 2-mile line till the diesel age was born. 10 big wheels to roll her along, just a working girl on the Lickey. Bertha's the name in the Hall of Fame, she was the only one of her kind, the first and last of her line. If a train should fail on the rising rail, they'd summon Bertha's power, then she'd ease them up to Blackwell Top in a quarter of an hour. 10 big wheels to roll her along, just a working girl on the Lickey. Bertha's the name in the Hall of Fame, she was the only one of her kind, first and last of her line. Well, a tower of strength on the Lickey's length, she seldom fell from grace. Then what could they do but send for 2 or 3 to take her place? 10 big wheels to roll her along, just a working girl on the Lickey. Bertha's the name in the Hall of Fame, she was the only one of her kind, the first and last of her line. Well, she steered dreamed away every working day for nearly 40 years on that famous run, but her time was done and she quietly disappeared. 10 big wheels to roll her along, just a working girl on the Lickey. But as the name in the Hall of Fame, she was the only one of her kind, the first and last of her line. Her name lives on, though her voice is gone from the early morning fields, and all I have is a photograph of a girl with 10 big wheels. 10 big wheels to roll her along, just a working girl on the Lickey. But as the name in the Hall of Fame, she was the only one of her kind, the first and last of her line. She was the only one of her kind, the first and last of her line.
Or when you're tumbling out of your bed, you don't know if you're dead or alive, and you make your way through the wakening day till you're climbing aboard a Black 5. Well, you're leaving the station behind, and you're shoveling mile after mile, and the kids all wave at the master and slave, and the passengers riding in style. Well, you're up and you're groping for coal, for the fire has blinded your eye. Fill the boiler's need and the fire hole's greed as you blacken the sun and the sky. She goes hammering over the hill, and you're bloody near roasted alive. Like a hound of steel riding runaway wheels, there's a devil astride a Black 5.
Smoke in my eyes, soot in my hair, cinders in my shoes. I'm watching the needle falling away and singing the 8th grade blues. Well, we're running late in the sorry state on 8215. She's overdue for boiler work and I can't get her the steam. With 1,000 tons of coal behind and the tender full of slack, me mate sent me to Coventry and he just won't answer back. Well, smoke in my eyes, soot in my hair, cinders in my shoes. I'm watching the needle falling away and singing the 8th grade blues. Now across the cab the driver sits and he's staring straight ahead. He's not spoken to me for 18 months since I started at the shed. He's drawn a line across the cab for each of us to stand, since he found I'd joined the NUR while he was an as-left man. Well, smoke in my eyes, soot in my hair, cinders in my shoes. I'm watching the needle falling away and singing the 8th grade blues. I fired a thin and piled it in, but still she wouldn't go. When the water dropped, I forced her stop on the main line for a blow. I've smashed the clinker, cleaned the fire, tried every trick I know, with the rake and dart, but that old fart blames me for all our woes. Smoke in my eyes, soot in my hair, cinders in my shoes. I'm watching the needle falling away and singing the 8th grade blues. With a 1 in 60 climb ahead and the water out of sight, we'll have to stop and blow her up for the second time tonight. The load comes on the engine and the start is showing green. I'm looking for the banker, but no banker's to be seen. Just smoke in my eyes, soot in my hair, cinders in my shoes. I'm watching the needle falling away and singing the 8th grade blues. Now the driver comes from Motherwell, his face I can't abide. He only knows full forward gear with the regulator wide. I can't touch his injector and mine is short of breath. I wish his balls would turn to bulldogs and bite the sod to death. Well, smoke in my eyes, soot in my hair, cinders in my shoes. I'm watching the needle falling away and singing the 8th grade blues. Smoke in my eyes, soot in my hair, cinders in my shoes. I'm watching the needle falling away and singing the 8th grade blues.
When the signals were green, did you sit by the line and watch for the fire in the sky? Then a scream and a roar and a shivering ground, and old Oliver Cromwell goes by. Did you fancy a hand at the throttle and brake with the steam driven into your soul? Or to stand with the driving wheels under your feet and shovel a mountain of coal? Well, they've silenced the whistle, the coal is all burned, they've buried the ashes for good. They've torn up the loop, and there's only a scar to show where the water crane stood. But the birch and the elder still follow the track, standing black in the smoke and the rain. And the poor little sheep with a smouldering back runs away at the sound of a train. Oh, Britannias and Jubilees, compounds and crabs have been taken away from the shed. And along with the clipper, the coach and the cab, they speak of an age that is dead. For some are away to be mounted and stuffed, while others are butchered and sold. And the steam raiser's gone for the very last time, and his brazier's broken and cold. Well, I've given me kettle and me old tin can to a lad for a souvenir, and I'd trade in me shovel for 20 fags, or the price of a bottle of beer. For the Scotsman has come to the end of his run, and Mallard is cold as the stone. Their story is over, the giants are dead, and the jackals are picking the bones. It was 5:30 on a Wednesday morn, the driver and his mate came hurtling out to Loco shedding a damn great number 8. The fireman wiped his greasy hands, they rolled along the track to pick up a gallon of water and a couple of tubs of slack, They waited till the clock was showing a couple £100. They took it to the turntable and they quickly turned around. But when they went to park her, they made their big mistake, for they left her on a gradient and forgot about the brake. It happened when the turntable was only halfway round. The engine's wheels began to turn with an ominous rumbling sound. The driver, when he saw the thing, began to scream and spit as the mighty engine humped its back and plunged into the pit. He went to see the foreman, he was quaking at the knees, saying, "Sir, you've got an engine parked at 45 degrees. The foreman turned a ghastly green and grabbed the telephone, then half a bottle of aspirins and he caught the next bus home, caught the next bus home. They fetched the gang from Nottingham and they soon set about. With chains and jacks and dirty words they got the damn thing out. The fireman lost his shovel, now he's sweeping up the coal, and I haven't seen the driver since, but I think he's on the dole, think he's on the dole. Dressed in soot and coal, cleaning engines for a year, elbow deep in paraffin oil. 16 now and on the shed, carrying fire and sand, shifting clinker, raising steam, cleaning up and filling his can. "22 and a mainline man, his trial has come and gone, and it's fill the boiler, watch the gauge, open the doors and shovel it on." 34 and now he's driving every other day. But times get worse and the jobs go down, and back he goes on fireman's pay. 48 and getting stout, but the footplate's all his own, and his engine thunders through the night, spills his tea and rattles his bones. 5'9" and 61, glasses on his nose, can't see too well, so off he comes to cleaning up and polishing floors. 65, his time is done, he swapped his coal and oil for a smart gold watch that bears his name. Then 66